In this lesson we're going to look at getting data out of our database. So if we open up the database, we're going to want to begin to ignore the details on the left because these are MySQL Workbench helping us out. We want to learn how to do this stuff ourselves. So the first thing we're going to do is to type show tables. And when we run this query, which I'm going to run by pressing Ctrl Shift and Enter, it will display the tables within the database for us. Now, as you can see, these are identical to the tables over here, but this is the actual SQL code running, which is displaying these tables for us, rather than us relying on MySQL Workbench. If you type this show tables and you don't get these results, if you type in instead use restaurant and run that, that will select the database for you properly. That's the equivalent of double clicking the database name. And then when you run show tables again, you should get the correct results. An important point to make here is the fact that all of the table names are all lowercase, and all of where there should be a space is an underscore. There are different schemas out there whereby different vendors will say use all uppercase or use camel case, for example, instead of this schema. But this schema will follow throughout the entire database that we're going to be using. SQL is case sensitive as well, so if you typed customer and it was all uppercase, that would refer to a different table than customer all lowercase, so just to be aware. So now that we know what tables are within the database, we need to know what's actually within each of the individual tables. To find out what's in the customer table, for example, we need to type the phrase describe customer and run that command. This will give you this information, which is all of the field names within that table. You can also do that for the other tables as well, which will give us the information for these tables. And finally, if we did this with staff, we would get the information for the staff table. Now this can be very useful if you're just trying to find out what's actually within the table, so that you can run more complex queries and get out of the database the information that you actually need. So now that we know what's within each of the tables, we can start to look for specific data. So if we wanted to find out all of the staff numbers of staff, we would type the command select staff number from staff, and that will give us all of the staff numbers. But it's very rare that you're ever going to want to just have one specific column. You may also want the name of those staff as well. In that case, you would add a comma and then the name of the next row that you wanted. When we run that command, that will give us our new information with both columns. If we wanted to return all of the data, we could just press asterisk here and run this command, and this will return all of the columns and all of the data. So asterisk in this case is a wildcard for all of the field names. To go back to that previous statement, if you don't like the look of this layout, you can also put multiple lines in to help separate what's going on. Having multiple lines doesn't affect the execution of the code. You can put different things on different lines, and this can help to make the code more easy to read for you, depending on your preferences. Unless it's a very complex query, I would tend to always keep it on a single line now. Everything we've done so far is from the staff table. As we mentioned earlier, We can use different tables. So we can return the information from the customer table. This will return all of the information because we've used the asterisk here. We could again limit this to specific fields, which will give us the outcome that we wanted. An interesting point here is the fact that the data that we get out when we run this command will be in the order of the fields that we put it here. So if we change this to country first and then city, the output data here will change when we run this command from country to city here. When you're running commands, it can be useful to bear this in mind so that the information that you're getting out of the database is actually in the order that you want it to be in, which can save you having to reprocess the data later on. Now there is another important aspect to selecting data. So far we've just selected all of the data that is in the table, but we can limit that to specific scenarios. So if we show all of the data within the customer table, we could say we want only the data where the city is Stockport, and we can do that by typing where city equals Stockport. If we run this command now, we're only going to get these 4 output. We will be diving a lot more into the where keyword in the next video when we're looking at filtering data. But if you haven't already, I would encourage you to have a play around with this so that you can familiarise yourself with the basic commands, because selecting data out of databases is probably the most common function of a database. And if you're using a database on a regular basis, you'll probably be using the select keyword the most out of all of the possible keywords available to you.